The morning sun rose over New Tajon colony, painting the endless wheat fields in gold. Una stood at her bedroom window, watching the light spread across the valley below. She was 10 years old and loved mornings like this. In 2 hours, she would be in school. But right now, the world belonged to her, and the farmers already working in the distant fields. Her mother called from the kitchen. Breakfast was ready. Una ran downstairs, her feet loud on the wooden steps. Their house was small but comfortable, like most homes in the colony. Through the kitchen window, she could see the landing pad where supply ships came and went every week. "You're excited today," her mother said, placing rice and eggs on the table. "What's special about today?" "Captain Daejung is coming. His ship has supplies from Earth. He promised to tell us stories about the core worlds." Her mother smiled. Daejung was a good man, a freighter captain who had been visiting their colony for 5 years. He always brought news and stories from other human worlds. The children loved him. Across the city, Governor Tai Ho sat in his office reviewing reports. 20 years ago, he had been a young naval officer. Then he retired and helped build this colony from nothing. 2 million people now called New Tajon home. They grew food that fed 12 other star systems. Life was good. His assistant brought morning coffee. "The harvest numbers are excellent this year, Governor. Dr. Hye-jin says her new crop strain exceeded all expectations." Tae-ho nodded. Dr. Park Hye-jin was brilliant. Her work in the agricultural labs had transformed their farming efficiency. He made a note to commend her work in his next report to Earth. Outside the city, in the research facility, Hye-jin was already at work. She had been in the lab since dawn, examining plant samples under microscopes. Her 2 children were at home with their father, probably getting ready for school. She would join them for dinner tonight. But mornings belonged to her research. Her assistant, a young scientist named Bo Ram, brought data tablets. "The yield projections are amazing, Doctor. If these numbers hold, we could increase production by 40%. Hye-jin allowed herself a small smile. Years of work were finally paying off. This new strain could help feed millions across human space. At the military base on the city's edge, Commander Woo Jin Choi walked through the morning drill. 500 soldiers stood at attention. It wasn't a large force, but New Tajon had never needed much defense. They were far from any hostile territory. The nearest alien species were peaceful traders. "Routine patrol schedules are posted," Woo Jin told his officers. "Standard readiness protocols. Nothing special today." He didn't believe they would ever face real combat. His garrison was more like a police force. They handled accidents, helped with disasters, kept the peace. Real military threats seemed like ancient history out here on the frontier. Above the planet, Daejung's freighter dropped out of hyperspace. The Morning Star was an old ship, scarred and patched from years of service, but she was reliable. Daejung had been flying her for 15 years, carrying cargo between the colonies and the core worlds. "New Tajon Control. This is the Morning Star requesting landing clearance," he spoke into the comm system. "Welcome back, Daejung," came the friendly reply. "You're cleared for Pad 7. The kids have been asking about you all week." Daejung laughed. He enjoyed these visits. New Tajon felt like a second home. He had watched this colony grow from a few thousand pioneers to a thriving world. Good people lived here. The school day began like any other. Una sat in class learning about Earth's history. Her teacher, Mr. Taewon, was talking about the early days of space exploration. How humans had spread from one planet to hundreds of worlds in just 3 centuries. "We're explorers," Taewon said. "We build new homes among the stars. We bring life to empty worlds." Una looked out the window at the city around them. New Tajon was proof of those words. Where once there had been empty plains, now there were homes, schools, farms, and happy families. At noon, the first anomaly appeared. A technician in the orbital monitoring station noticed something on the sensors. Ships dropping out of hyperspace at the system's edge. 12 vessels. Unknown configuration. "Probably traders," his supervisor said. "Run identification protocols." They sent the standard hailing message. All ships entering human space were required to identify themselves. The response was silence. The technician frowned. They're not responding, and their trajectory, they're heading straight for us. The supervisor leaned over the console. His frown deepened. Alert planetary defense. Something's wrong. Commander Wu Jin received the alert in his office. Unknown ships. Approaching at high speed, not responding to communications. His training kicked in immediately. He sounded the base alarm and activated the defense grid. All personnel to stations. Power up the orbital platforms. This is not a drill. Governor Tae-ho was in a meeting when his emergency comm chimed. Wu Jin's face appeared on the screen, tense and focused. Governor, we have an unknown fleet approaching, 12 ships. They won't identify themselves or respond to hails. I'm activating all defenses. Tae-ho felt ice in his stomach. How long until they reach us? 90 minutes at their current speed. Do what you need to do, Commander. I'll address the population and initiate evacuation protocols. Across the colony, warning sirens began to wail. People looked up from their work, confused and frightened. This had never happened before. In schools, teachers began moving children to designated shelters. On the farms, workers headed for their vehicles, ready to return to the city. Yuna heard the sirens and felt fear grip her heart. Her teacher was trying to stay calm, organizing the students. Everyone stay together. We're going to the shelter. Hold hands and walk quickly. Dr. Hyojin heard the sirens in her lab. Her first thought was of her children. She grabbed her comm device and called her husband. Get the kids to the shelter near the school. I'll meet you there. What's happening? He asked, voice shaking. I don't know. Just go. Now. Dae-jung was still docked at the spaceport when the sirens started. He ran to his ship and powered up the systems. His cargo hold was full of supplies, but he could make room for people if needed. His crew was already at their stations. In orbit, the defense platforms came online. 6 orbital weapon stations, capable of engaging hostile vessels. Commander Wu Jin watched the tactical display as the unknown ships came closer. 45 minutes, his tactical officer reported. Still no response to hails. Wu Jin opened a channel to all military frequencies. All units, weapons free. Engage on my command. Protect the colony. Governor Tae-ho stood in the emergency command center, watching the same displays. Around him, staff coordinated evacuation efforts and emergency responses. His hands were steady, but his mind was racing. Who were these ships? What did they want? The unknown vessels crossed into weapons range. Commander Wu Jin gave the order. All platforms, fire. Energy beams lanced through space, striking the lead ships. For a moment, Wu Jin felt hope. Then the unknown ships returned fire, and everything changed. Their weapons were powerful, far more powerful than anything the colony possessed. The first orbital platform exploded in a ball of fire, then the second, and the third. They're destroying the platforms, someone shouted. On the ground, people looked up and saw bright flashes in the sky. The unknown ships were breaking through their defenses. Terror spread through the streets. Yuna huddled with her classmates in the underground shelter. Through the thick walls, she could hear distant explosions. Her teacher held them close, trying to comfort them. But everyone knew something terrible was happening. The alien ships entered atmosphere. They were black and angular, like predators diving toward prey. No more attempts at communication, no demands, no warnings. They simply opened fire on the city below. Governor Tae-ho watched in horror as the first bombs fell. Buildings exploded. Streets erupted in flames. His beautiful colony, 20 years of work, was being destroyed before his eyes. Get everyone underground, he ordered. All shelters, seal immediately. But it was too late for many. The alien assault was systematic and merciless. They targeted population centers first, then infrastructure, then the agricultural zones. They weren't invading, they were exterminating. Commander Wu Jin rallied his soldiers. All units, defensive positions, protect the evacuation routes. But against 12 warships, 500 soldiers with ground weapons could do little. The battle for New Taejan had begun. and it would last 27 hours. 27 hours that would change the galaxy forever. The first hour was chaos. The alien ships moved through the sky like death itself, firing energy weapons that tore through buildings as if they were paper. Commander Wu Jin's soldiers fought back with everything they had, but their weapons barely scratched the alien vessels. "Fall back to defensive positions," Wu Jin shouted over the radio. "Protect the spaceport. We need to get civilians off this planet." His soldiers retreated through burning streets, carrying wounded civilians when they could. Every few minutes, another building collapsed. The sky was black with smoke. The beautiful morning had become a nightmare. At the spaceport, Captain Dai Jung was loading people into his ship as fast as possible. His cargo hold, meant for supplies, now held terrified families pressed together. Children cried, parents held them tight, everyone wanted to escape. "How many can you take?" a security officer shouted over the noise of explosions. 800, maybe more if we squeeze," Dai Jung yelled back. "But we need time to load." "You'll get it." The officer ran toward the defensive line where soldiers were setting up weapons to protect the spaceport. In the underground shelter beneath the school, Yuna held her mother's hand. Her mother had made it to them just before the shelter sealed. Around them, dozens of families huddled together in the dark. The lights flickered every time something exploded overhead. "Why are they doing this?" a woman asked, crying. "We didn't do anything to them." Nobody had an answer. The attack made no sense. New Taijon had no military value. It was just farms and homes, peaceful people trying to live their lives. Dr. Heejin had made it to a shelter near her lab. But instead of staying there, she was helping the medical team treat wounded people who kept arriving. Her hands were covered in blood. She worked without stopping, focusing on saving lives while the world burned above. A young soldier, barely 20 years old, was carried in with severe burns. Heejin worked on him while bombs shook the shelter walls. "Stay with me," she told him. "You're going to be okay." But she wasn't sure any of them would be okay. Governor Taeho remained in the command center, coordinating what little defense they had left. Reports flooded in from across the colony. The eastern district was completely destroyed. The agricultural zones were burning. Thousands were dead. Thousands more were trapped. "Get me a communication link to the alien ships," he ordered. "There has to be someone we can talk to." They tried every frequency, every protocol. The aliens didn't respond. They just kept firing. "Governor," his communication officer said quietly, "I have a clear channel to Earth. We should send a message while we still can." Taeho nodded slowly. He moved to the communication console and began recording. His hands were steady even though his heart was breaking. "This is Governor Taeho of New Taejon Colony. We are under attack by unknown alien forces. They have not communicated their intentions or demands. They are systematically destroying our colony and killing our people. We have 2 million civilians here. We cannot hold out much longer." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "To Earth, to all human worlds, I say this. Remember us. Remember what happened here. And when the time comes, avenge us. Make them pay for every life they've taken. Governor Taeho, signing off." The message was transmitted immediately, racing across space toward Earth at faster than light speed. At the spaceport, Commander Wu Jin's defensive line was being pushed back. The alien ships had noticed the evacuation efforts and were focusing fire on the landing pads. Energy beams turned ships into molten metal before they could take off. "We need more time," Dai Jung yelled into his comm. His ship was almost full, but there were still hundreds of people waiting to board. "You've got 5 minutes," Wu Jin shouted back. "Then you need to launch, or you'll die here with us." Wu Jin watched as another civilian shuttle exploded on the pad. So many dead. He had failed to protect them, but maybe he could save these last few hundred. "All units, concentrate fire on the lead alien ship. Give the Morning Star cover." His soldiers fired everything they had. Missiles, plasma weapons, railguns. Most shots bounced off the alien shields, but it got their attention. The alien ship turned toward the military position and away from the spaceport. Dai Jung's crew pulled the last refugees aboard and sealed the cargo doors. "Everyone hold on," Dai Jung announced over the internal speakers. "This is going to be rough." The Morning Star lifted off, engines screaming. Daejong pushed the old ship harder than he ever had. They climbed through smoke and fire, dodging energy beams that carved through the air around them. One shot grazed their starboard side, melting hull plating. Alarms shrieked. "Come on, girl," Daejong whispered to his ship. "Get us out of here." They broke through the atmosphere. The alien blockade was above them. 3 ships moved to intercept. Daejong plotted a desperate course between them, using every trick he knew. The Morning Star twisted and turned, taking hits but staying intact. Then they were through, racing toward the hyperspace jump point. Behind them, New Taejon burned. Back on the surface, Commander Woojin's position was being overrun. Most of his soldiers were dead. The aliens had landed ground troops now, tall creatures in dark armor that moved through the ruins, killing anyone they found. Woojin fired his rifle until it ran dry, then drew his pistol. An alien soldier appeared around a corner. Woojin fired 3 times. The creature fell. He felt no satisfaction, only sadness. This was how it ended. He activated his comm one last time. To any human forces listening, this is Commander Woojin Choi of New Taejon Defense Force. We have fought with honor. We have protected as many civilians as we could. Tell our families we did our duty. Tell Earth. Make them pay for this. An energy beam struck him. Commander Woojin Choi fell among his soldiers, dead but undefeated. In the shelters, the survivors waited in darkness. The attacks continued through the day and into the night. The alien forces were thorough. They destroyed every structure, every farm, every sign of human presence. Yuna sat with her mother in the dark, listening to the muffled sounds of destruction. Other children whimpered. Adults tried to comfort them, but words felt empty. They were all going to die here. "I'm scared," Yuna whispered. Her mother held her tighter. "I know, baby, I know." Dr. Hyojin continued working in her shelter's medical station, though supplies were running low. The wounded kept coming, carried down by brave people who risked their lives to save others. She worked until her hands shook from exhaustion. A message came over the shelter's communication system. Governor Tae-ho's voice, tired but firm. "To all citizens of New Taejon, this is your governor. I want you to know that I am proud to have served you. You built something beautiful here. You created a home among the stars. The aliens can destroy our buildings, but they cannot destroy what we built together. Be brave, take care of each other, and never stop being human." Many people cried hearing those words. They knew it was goodbye. The second day arrived. The attacks slowed but didn't stop. The aliens were searching the ruins now, hunting survivors. Some shelters were found and broken open. The people inside were killed. In Yuna's shelter, they heard digging above them. Heavy footsteps. Alien voices speaking in clicking, harsh sounds. Everyone held their breath. A child started to cry but was quickly hushed. The digging stopped. The footsteps moved away. They had been passed by, but for how much longer? Governor Tae-ho sat in the command center, now partially collapsed. Most of his staff was dead. The power was failing. He could see through the broken wall to the burning city outside. His life's work, reduced to ash. He recorded one final message. Not an official statement. Just the words of a tired man. "My name is Tae-ho. I was a naval officer once. Then I became a governor. I built this colony with my own hands. I watched it grow from nothing to a home for 2 million people. Now it's gone. But I want whoever finds this to know, we were here. We lived. We loved. We built something good, and we did not deserve this." He shut off the recorder. Outside, an alien patrol was approaching the command center. Tae-ho had one pistol left. He stood and walked to meet them. The third day came. 27 hours after it began, the attack ended. The alien ships departed as suddenly as they had arrived, leaving only destruction behind. They broadcast a message across local space in broken human language. "Human expansion stops here. This is the price of your colonization. Stay away from our territory." Then they jumped to hyperspace and were gone. New Taejon was silent. 2,300,000 people had lived there. Now there were only ruins and the dead. A few thousand survivors remained in sealed shelters, waiting for rescue that might never come. But in space, racing toward human territory, Captain Daejung and his 800 refugees carried the news. They carried the story of what happened. They carried the rage that would soon consume the galaxy. The aliens thought they had sent a message. They were right. But they badly misunderstood what humanity's response would be. The news reached Earth 4 days after the attack. Captain Daejung's ship, damaged and limping, arrived at the nearest human outpost with 800 refugees and a story that would shake humanity to its core. Within hours, every communication channel in human space was broadcasting the footage. Daejung had recorded everything from his ship's cameras. The destruction, the fires, the systematic extermination of an entire colony. 2 million people, gone in 27 hours. On Earth, in the Terran Defense Council chamber, emergency lights flashed red. Fleet Admiral Sung Ho Kwan stood before a holographic display showing New Taejon's last moments. He was 60 years old, a veteran of the First Contact Wars. He had seen combat before, but nothing like this. President Ji Won-ro entered the chamber. She had been a colonial governor herself before entering politics. She understood what those people had experienced, the fear, the helplessness, the injustice of it all. "Give me options, Admiral," she said without preamble. Sung Ho pulled up tactical displays. The attackers are called the Vorak Ascendancy, a militant species from the Karina sector. They claim we were expanding into their territory. They wanted to send a message. They succeeded, Ji-won said coldly. Now we need to send ours. How fast can we mobilize? Every fleet? 72 hours. But Madam President, this would be total war. We're talking about hundreds of ships, tens of thousands of personnel. The economic cost alone, I don't care about the cost, Ji-won interrupted. They murdered 2 million civilians without warning or negotiation. They broadcast it as a threat. If we don't respond with overwhelming force, every aggressive species in the galaxy will think humans are easy prey. We respond now, and we respond completely. Sung Ho nodded slowly. He had hoped she would say that. Then I recommend Protocol Blackout. The room went silent. Protocol Blackout was humanity's doctrine for existential threats. Total military mobilization. No rules of engagement except victory. No mercy for those who showed none first. Approved, Ji-won said. Activate every fleet. Mobilize every reserve. I want the largest military force in human history assembled within 3 days. And Admiral, I want the Vorak military destroyed, not defeated. Destroyed. Yes, Madam President. The call went out across all human space. Every colony, every settlement, every ship received the same message. New Taejon had been massacred. 2 million dead. Humanity was going to war. The response was instant and overwhelming. Colonies that barely spoke to each other pledged their fleets. Corporate security forces were federalized. Civilian ships were armed and conscripted. Retired officers returned to service. Young people lined up to enlist. Captain Hyun-sik Bae was commanding the dreadnought Incheon's Fury on patrol near Mars when the orders came. Return to Earth immediately for deployment. He was 45 years old and had served in the Navy for 20 years. He had never commanded a ship in real combat. That was about to change. At the military shipyards orbiting Earth, workers operated around the clock. Ships were armed, supplied, and prepared for departure. The docks that usually built cargo haulers now churned out warships. Every resource was directed toward one goal: retribution. Dr. Ki Tae-yoon worked in a classified weapons facility beneath the lunar surface. He was a physicist who had spent 10 years developing something he hoped would never be used. They were called Reaper missiles. Kinetic impactors that struck with the force of nuclear weapons but with no radiation. Clean kills. Precise devastation. When the mobilization order came, Kaite's supervisor asked him a simple question. Can we deploy them? Kite thought of the footage he had seen. Children hiding in schools, families running through burning streets, people who had done nothing wrong, exterminated like insects. Yes, he said, deploy them all. Captain Dae-jung sat in a medical facility on Earth, recovering from radiation exposure and exhaustion. Reporters wanted to interview him. Government officials wanted his testimony, but he only wanted to sleep and forget the screams he still heard in his dreams. A young woman in a military uniform entered his room. Commander Mi-sun Jang, a Marine officer. She sat down without asking permission. "You saved 800 people," she said. "I left 2 million behind," Dae-jung replied. "You did everything you could. Now we're going to finish what you started. I wanted you to know that. Every Marine in the fleet knows your name. We know what you did, and we're going to make the Vorak pay for every person they killed." Dae-jung looked at her. She was young, maybe 30, but her eyes were hard, determined. He saw in her face what he felt in his heart. Rage. The cold, focused rage of someone who would not stop until justice was done. "Kill them all," he said quietly. "We will," Mi-sun promised. At the Defense Council, Admiral Sung-ho briefed the assembled commanders. The holographic display showed the Vorak home system surrounded by their military installations. 63 orbital stations, 17 fleet bases, 4 shipyards, hundreds of ships. "This is our target," Sung-ho said. "We're not fighting a battle. We're dismantling their ability to make war. Every military asset will be destroyed. Every shipyard will be reduced to debris. We will leave them defenseless." Captain Hyun-sik studied the tactical data. "That's an ambitious plan, Admiral. The Vorak have a strong fleet." "They had a strong fleet," Sung-ho corrected. "By the time we're done, they'll have nothing. I'm putting you in command of the first strike group, Captain. Your target is their home fleet in orbit around Vorak Prime. Break through their defenses and secure orbital superiority. The rest of the fleet will follow." Hyun-sik swallowed hard. It was the most important mission of his life. "Understood, sir." "One more thing," Sung-ho added. "The Vorak tried to negotiate the moment they heard we were mobilizing. They offered reparations, territory, resources. I rejected all of it. There will be no negotiation. They had 27 hours to negotiate. They chose murder instead." The commanders nodded in agreement. This wasn't about territory or resources. This was about teaching the galaxy a lesson. Touch humanity, and humanity would end you. On the third day, the Retribution fleet assembled in Earth orbit. 847 ships. From small corvettes to massive dreadnoughts. The largest military force humanity had ever gathered. They hung in space like a steel cloud, weapons charged and crews ready. President Ji-won broadcast from the flag bridge of Admiral Sung-ho's command ship. Every human world received the transmission. So did every alien government that had diplomatic relations with humanity. 3 days ago, the Vorak Ascendancy attacked New Taejon without warning or provocation. They murdered 2,300,000 men, women, and children. They destroyed a peaceful colony built over 20 years. They did this to send a message about human expansion. Her face was calm, but her voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. "We received their message. Now we send our reply. To the Vorak. You wanted war. You have it. To every species watching, humanity will not strike first, but we will always strike last. Touch one colony, and every human weapon in the galaxy will answer. There will be no warning, no negotiation, only justice." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Remember New Taejon. Remember their names. Remember their faces. And remember that humanity always pays its debts." The transmission ended. The fleet began moving. 847 ships, engines burning bright, heading toward the hyperspace jump point. They would arrive at Vorak space in 6 days. The Vorak knew they were coming. They were scrambling their defenses, calling in allies, preparing for battle. But they had made one critical mistake. They thought this would be a war fought according to normal rules. They thought humanity would be cautious, afraid of casualties, willing to negotiate. They were wrong. Admiral Sung-ho stood on his command bridge, watching the stars stream past as the fleet entered hyperspace. Around him, his officers worked at their stations. Professional, determined, angry. "All ships report ready for combat, sir," his tactical officer announced. "Good," Sung-ho replied. When we arrive at Vorak space, I want every military target identified and locked. We fire the moment we drop out of hyperspace. No warnings, no chances. We came to deliver a message. What message is that, sir? Sung Ho's expression was carved from stone. That humanity remembers, and humanity never forgives. The fleet raced through hyperspace toward its destination. Behind them, across human space, people waited and watched. Families of the new Tejon victims. Soldiers preparing for deployment. Civilians hoping for justice. They would not have to wait long. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when humanity went to war. Not for territory, not for resources, but for vengeance. The Vorak ascendancy had killed 2 million humans to send a warning. Humanity was bringing 800 ships to send a reply. The galaxy would remember which message was louder. The Retribution fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of Vorak territory. 847 human ships appeared like an iron curtain, weapons already charging. On the command bridge of the Inchen's Fury, Captain Hyunsik watched the tactical display light up with targets. The Vorak home fleet was waiting for them. 200 ships arranged in defensive formations around their homeworld. It was the largest fleet the Vorak had ever assembled. They thought it would be enough. It wasn't. All ships, this is Admiral Sung Ho, fire at will. Show no mercy. The space between the two fleets filled with light and death. Human railguns fired streams of metal that crossed the distance in seconds. Energy beams carved through Vorak shields. Missiles locked onto targets and pursued them relentlessly. The Vorak fired back, but they were overwhelmed. For every human ship, there were 4 more behind it. For every weapon they destroyed, 10 more opened fire. The human fleet didn't fight like a military force. It fought like a tsunami, unstoppable and merciless. Hyunsik's dreadnought led the charge straight into the Vorak center line. The Inchen's Fury was massive, heavily armored, and armed with weapons that could crack planets. Its main guns spoke with thunder, and Vorak ships exploded like flowers of fire. Target their flagship, Hyunsik ordered. I want that ship disabled and boarded. The Vorak flagship was enormous, twice the size of a human dreadnought. It was trying to retreat behind its escort ships. But there was nowhere to run. Human corvettes swarmed it like wolves, their smaller weapons chewing through its engines. Then the Inchen's Fury fired its main battery. The beam punched through the flagship's armor and tore out its power core. The great ship went dark, drifting helplessly. The battle had lasted 30 minutes. The Vorak home fleet was shattered, but the humans didn't stop. This wasn't about winning battles. This was about destroying the enemy's ability to fight. Admiral Sung Ho's orders were clear. Every military installation, every shipyard, every orbital station, leave nothing. Dr. Kaite's Reaper missiles were deployed. They were massive kinetic impactors launched from specialized ships. No warheads, no explosives, just solid metal moving at incredible speeds. When they hit, the impact released as much energy as a nuclear weapon, but without the radiation. The first Reaper struck a Vorak shipyard in high orbit. The massive construction facility, where warships were built and repaired, was torn apart in an instant. Metal and bodies scattered into space. The second Reaper destroyed a fleet base on one of Vorak Prime's moons. The base and everything within 50 kilometers was reduced to a crater. Across the system, human forces attacked every target simultaneously. It was coordinated destruction on a scale never seen before. The Vorak military had nowhere to hide, no time to regroup. Every ship that escaped one battle flew into another. The Vorak government tried to negotiate. They broadcast messages pleading for talks, offering surrender. Admiral Sung Ho's response was broadcast back across their entire system. You had 27 hours to negotiate. You chose slaughter. There is no negotiation with exterminators. Commander Mi Sun-jong led the Marine boarding teams onto the disabled Vorak flagship. 200 Marines in powered armor, carrying heavy weapons. The Vorak crew tried to resist. They had no chance. Mi Sun's team moved through the ship like a storm. Room by room, deck by deck. The Vorak fought with desperation, but human Marines were trained for this, trained and angry. Every Marine had watched the footage from New Tajon. They knew what these creatures had done. Bridge secured, Mi-sun reported. We have prisoners, requesting instructions. Take them to the detention ships, Admiral Sung-ho replied. They'll face trial for war crimes. The Vorak admiral was dragged from his command chair. He looked at Mi-sun with hate in his eyes. You're making a mistake. Our allies will— Your allies are running, Mi-sun interrupted. 3 species who promised to support you have already withdrawn their fleets. They watched what we did to your home defense force in 30 minutes, and they decided they wanted no part of this war. You're alone. The Vorak admiral's expression changed from hate to fear. He understood then. The Vorak ascendancy was finished. The battle continued for 3 days. Human ships pursued Vorak vessels across the entire system. There was no escape. Every military ship was destroyed or captured. Every orbital installation was reduced to debris. The massive shipyards that had taken decades to build were torn apart in minutes. On the 4th day, the Vorak government made one final broadcast: complete and unconditional surrender. They begged for mercy, promised reparations, offered hostages. They would do anything to stop the destruction. Admiral Sung-ho consulted with President Ji-won. The decision was made. The military assault would end. But there would be consequences. Sung-ho's response was broadcast across the Vorak homeworld. Your military is destroyed. Your ability to make war is ended. Vorak space is now under Terran protectorate. Your government will be dissolved. Your leaders will face trial for genocide. Your people will live, but you will never again threaten human colonies or any peaceful species. He paused, letting the weight of his words sink in. And one more thing. New Tajon will be rebuilt. On the same world where you committed your massacre, humans will plant new fields and build new homes. Your attack accomplished nothing except your own destruction. Remember that. The Vorak homeworld went silent. They had gambled on intimidating humanity and had lost everything. But the war wasn't quite over. There was one last Vorak stronghold, Krell Station, a massive military base in deep space. Thousands of Vorak soldiers and officers had retreated there, refusing to surrender. They sent a defiant message to the human fleet. We will fight to the last. We will never bow to humans. Commander Mi-sun volunteered to lead the assault. Let me handle it, Admiral. My Marines want this. The attack on Krell Station was brutal. The Vorak defenders had prepared well, turning the station into a fortress. But they hadn't faced human Marines before, not Marines who remembered New Tajon. The assault lasted 18 hours. Room-to-room combat, close quarters fighting with rifles, blades, and sometimes just fists. The station's corridors ran red. The Vorak fought hard, but the Marines fought harder. They had something the Vorak didn't. They were fighting for justice, not just survival. Mi-sun led from the front, her armor scarred by energy weapons but still functional. She reached the station's command center to find the Vorak commander barricaded inside with his last troops. Surrender, she called through the sealed door. It's over. Your government has fallen. Your fleet is destroyed. Your choice is to die here or face trial. The door opened. The Vorak commander and his officers emerged with their hands raised. They looked defeated, broken. The great Vorak military, reduced to prisoners begging for their lives. Take them into custody, Mi-sun ordered. The war is over. 6 weeks after the Retribution fleet had departed Earth, the last shot was fired. The Vorak ascendancy, once a powerful militant empire, was now occupied territory. Their leaders were in chains, awaiting trial. Their military was gone, their ships destroyed or captured. Their aggressive expansion had been stopped permanently. The human fleet began the long journey home. They had lost ships and soldiers. Thousands of humans had died in the fighting. But they had accomplished their mission, complete and total victory. As the fleet prepared to leave Vorak space, Admiral Sung-ho made one final broadcast. This one wasn't aimed at the Vorak. It was transmitted across the entire galaxy to every species with the technology to receive it. This is Fleet Admiral Sung-ho Kwon of the Terran Defense Force. 6 weeks ago, the Vorak Ascendancy attacked and destroyed a human colony, killing over 2 million civilians. They did this to send a message about human expansion. Today, the Vorak military no longer exists. Their government has fallen. Their ability to threaten anyone is ended. He paused, looking into the camera with steel in his eyes. Let this be known across every star and every world. Humanity does not seek war. We are explorers, builders, and farmers. But we protect our own. Touch one human colony, attack one human ship, harm one human child, and every gun, every ship, every soldier in human space will answer. The message ended with a simple image. The memorial being built for New Tajan. 2,300,000 names carved in stone. A reminder of what was lost, and a warning of what would happen to anyone who tried it again. The galaxy had learned a new lesson. Humanity was not weak. Humanity did not forgive. And humanity always remembered its dead. The Retribution fleet returned to Earth 8 weeks after departing. They came home not as conquerors, but as executors of justice. Along the parade routes, millions gathered to watch the ships descend from orbit. People held signs with the names of New Tajun victims. Families who had lost loved ones wept with gratitude and grief. Captain Hyunsik stood on the bridge of the Inchen's Fury as they approached Earth. His ship bore the scars of battle, hull plating melted by enemy fire. But she had survived, and so had most of her crew. They had done what they set out to do. It's over, his tactical officer said quietly. No, Hyunsik replied. It's just beginning. Now comes the hard part. Making sure it meant something. In the weeks that followed, the galaxy watched as humanity reshaped the political landscape. The Vorak territory was divided into protectorate zones, administered by a coalition of human governors and representatives from neutral alien species. The Vorak people were allowed to continue their lives, but their military was permanently disbanded. No warships, no weapons of mass destruction. Only enough forces for basic police duties. The Vorak leaders were brought to trial. President G1 insisted the proceedings be public and broadcast across all of known space. The entire galaxy would see justice being done. The trials were held in a massive courtroom built specifically for this purpose on Earth. Thousands of Vorak officers and government officials stood accused of genocide, war crimes, and crimes against sentient beings. The evidence was overwhelming. The footage from New Tajan was played. Captain Dae-jung testified. Survivors told their stories. Admiral Sung-ho attended every day of the trials. He sat in the gallery, silent and stern, a reminder of the price the Vorak had paid for their crimes. When asked why he came, he said simply, "Someone needs to represent the 2 million who can't be here." The verdicts came after 3 months. Guilty on all counts. The sentences ranged from life imprisonment to execution for the worst offenders. The Vorak admiral who had commanded the attack fleet was among those sentenced to death. Before his sentence was carried out, he was asked if he had any final words. "I was following orders," he said. "I thought we were protecting our territory." 2 million people died because you followed orders without questioning them, the judge replied. That is not a defense. That is an indictment. The executions were carried out. The galaxy watched, and every aggressive species that had been considering expansion into human space quietly abandoned their plans. On the ruins of New Tajan, something new was growing. President Ji-won had announced that the colony would be rebuilt in the exact same location. It would be called New Tajan II, a memorial and a promise. Thousands of volunteers arrived to help with the reconstruction. Captain Dae-jung was among them. He had been offered promotions, medals, and honors. He refused them all. Instead, he asked for permission to be part of the rebuilding effort. He piloted supply runs to the colony, bringing materials and workers. It was his way of honoring those he couldn't save. One day, while unloading supplies, he met a young woman named Bora. She was a farmer's daughter who had survived the attack in one of the deep shelters. She had been underground for 3 days before rescue teams found her. "Why did you come back?" Dae-jung asked her. "After everything that happened here?" "Because this is my home," Bora said simply. "The aliens destroyed our buildings. But they didn't destroy what we built together. That lives in us. And we're going to rebuild it, stronger than before. Dae-jung looked at the construction sites around them. New buildings rising from the ruins. Fields being cleared and replanted. The sound of life returning to a dead world. "You're braver than I am," he said. "No," Bo-ra replied. "You saved 800 people. You carried our story to the rest of humanity. Without you, there would be no justice. Without justice, there would be no rebuilding. You did your part. Now we do ours." The memorial for New Taejon was completed on Earth a year after the attack. It was a massive black stone wall with every name carved into it. 2,300,000 names. It took months just to carve them all. The dedication ceremony was attended by hundreds of thousands. President Ji-won spoke. Admiral Sung-ho spoke. Captain Dae-jung spoke. Though he kept his words short because speaking about that day still brought him pain. But the most powerful moment came when Yuna stepped forward. She was 11 now, one of the survivors who had been found in a shelter after the attack. She had lost her mother that day. The woman who had held her in the darkness had died protecting her from falling debris when the shelter partially collapsed. Yuna stood at the podium, small and young, facing the enormous crowd. She held a piece of paper with her prepared speech, but when the moment came, she set it aside and spoke from her heart. "My name is Yuna. I lived on New Taejon. My mother died protecting me. I don't remember much about that day. I remember being scared. I remember the explosions. I remember darkness. But I also remember something else." She paused, gathering her courage. "I remember my mother telling me to be brave. She told me that humans don't give up. We don't let fear win. We remember those we love and we keep going. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to grow up. I'm going to become a pilot, like I always dreamed. And someday, I'm going to go back to New Taejon and help build it again. Because that's what humans do. We build. We remember. And we never let them win." There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. The political impact of the war rippled across the galaxy. The Galactic Community Council, which had largely ignored human affairs before, now treated humanity with wary respect. 3 species that had been considering aggressive actions toward human colonies quietly reversed course. 2 others sent diplomatic missions to Earth, seeking trade agreements and non-aggression pacts. President Ji-won addressed the Galactic Council in a historic speech. Behind her, on massive screens, played footage of New Taejon burning. Then footage of the Vorak military being destroyed. Then footage of the trials. Then footage of New Taejon 2 being rebuilt. "Humanity offers friendship to all peaceful species," she said. "We seek cooperation, trade, and cultural exchange. We are explorers and builders by nature, but we are also protectors. We protect our own with absolute commitment. The choice is yours. Come to us as friends, and we will welcome you. Come as enemies, and you will meet the same fate as the Vorak." The council members sat in silence. The message was clear. Humanity was no longer a minor species on the galactic stage. They were a power that demanded respect and caution. 5 years after the war, New Taejon 2 was thriving. 50,000 colonists had settled there, with more arriving every month. The fields were green again. Schools were full of children. Captain Dae-jung had married Bo-ra, and they ran a small farm together. Life had returned to a world that had been dead. On the anniversary of the attack, ceremonies were held across human space. On New Taejon 2, survivors and new colonists gathered at a memorial park built where the old capital had stood. A simple stone monument bore the words, "They died as civilians. We answered as warriors. Never again." Admiral Sung-ho, now retired, stood at the memorial with tears in his eyes. He had spent his life in the military fighting to protect humanity. But only here, at this memorial, did he truly understand what he had been fighting for. Not territory, not resources, but the right of people to live in peace, to build homes, to raise children without fear. Commander Mai-sun, now a general, stood beside him. She had gone on to command marine forces across human space. Her reputation was legendary. The woman who had taken Krell Station. The marine who showed the galaxy that humanity's warriors were as fierce as its builders were determined. "Do you think they understand now?" she asked Sung-ho. "The other species, do they understand what happens when you attack humans?" "Some do," Sung-ho replied. "Others will need to be reminded. But that's okay. We're patient, and we have long memories." In orbit above New Taejon 2, the patrol ship Morningstar 2 kept watch. Captain Hyun-sik commanded her now, having transferred from his dreadnought to take this assignment. He had asked for it specifically. Protecting this world, this memorial to human determination, felt right. A young ensign on his bridge looked nervous. It was her first assignment. "Captain, do you think we'll ever face another threat like the Vorak?" Hyun-sik looked out at the planet below, green and alive and full of hope. "Maybe," he said. "But if we do, they'll learn what the Vorak learned. Humanity doesn't start wars, but we finish them. We remember our dead. We avenge our fallen, and we ensure it never happens again." He turned back to his crew. "But that's not why we're here. We're not here to wait for war. We're here to protect peace, to give those people down there the chance to live, build, and dream. That's what being human means. We explore, we build, we protect, and we never forget." Below them, on New Taejon 2, children played in parks built over old battlefields. Farmers worked fields planted over mass graves. Life continued, stubborn and determined and beautiful. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity was not weak. Humanity did not forgive those who committed genocide. But most importantly, humanity never stopped being human. They would always build. They would always remember. And they would always protect their own. In the depths of space, a sensor buoy continued its broadcast. It had been placed at the edge of human territory, sending its message continuously in every known language. "This is Terran space. We came in peace. We seek friends and trade partners. We will not start wars. But we will finish them. Remember New Taejon. Remember what happens to those who attack peaceful humans. Come as friends, or don't come at all." The message played on repeat, a promise and a warning. The galaxy listened, and the galaxy remembered.